रामा सर, आप कहाँ हो?
गुड आफ्टरनून। मैं अभी बस निकला हूँ मिनिस्ट्री से।
Okay. I saw a lot of greenery in the back.
मिनिस्ट्री।
Hi everybody. Hi Sudeep Dada. Hi Rama sir. Hi Doctor sir.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Tej, how are you?
Great, great. Good sir.
अच्छी बात है।
Tej bhai finds an office wherever he goes.
I have a mobile office. It's called the Samsung tablet.
So Tej sir, we are online. So chairman sir is there, but he's traveling. He'll be in his office in another 4-5 minutes. In the meantime, Sagar, all the attendees are inside, na?
No, people are still joining, sir.
People are joining. Should we wait for another 2-3 minutes?
Yeah, that
2-3 minutes. 2-3 minutes.
Sudeep Dada, Dushan bhai is already on.
No.
10 minutes in.
He's traveling. He's on his handphone.
Yes.
So he can reach his office and be more comfortable to speak to the members.
I think 125 people have joined. So we are waiting just 2-3 minutes for more to join, and then we start by one.
A very good afternoon to everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. It's great to see over 150 participants here on a very important topic of Carotar. So Carotar is something that we all are now familiar with, but this is something that gives us an opportunity. As we saw in the last decade, we saw simplification in a lot of processes. Carotar is so I just share my experience. In 2012, I had made a presentation to a group of friends on free trade agreements and how things will move forward. With the introduction of rules like Carotar, we will see a lot of impetus in knowledge domain, and it is those who have this knowledge will ensure that they are able to service their customers in a much better manner. With the recent introduction of non-tariff measures and non-tariff barriers, we will see, a lot of opportunities for us in the logistics space. I would now like to hand over to Honorable Secretary Suripda to take things forward. Suripda, over to you. Suripda, you're on mute.
So thank you, Tej sir. Welcome to all the delegates who have so eagerly joined to hear our Dr. Joshua for this Carotar aspect of this whole thing. This certificate of origin issue was always there, and verification of signature of the certificate of origin certificates was always there. But after a certain point of time, we realized the importance of this certificate, why this certificate was issued, what are the high level discussions that took place, and the kind of research that took place before going into such an agreement and thereafter issuing certificates to give you import duty benefits. That was not realized by most of us before this Carotar rules came in. So as Tej Bhai has said, things are getting simpler, things are getting fast. But on the other hand, we are also having to deal with other aspects, which in a way I think is good for us because it gives us more work to do, and more work to do means more business on our part. So if we take it in a positive way, it is more business on our part. But what we have to know and be ready with is the actual knowledge of this whole thing. Many of our members are facing difficulties at the very grassroots level, at the Turant Seva Kendra, Turant Seva Kendra level, TSK, which we call. So not only we are going to discuss those small aspects or those day-to-day aspects, but these small aspects leads to bigger problems. But we are also going to hear a little bit about what is the background behind this Carotar rules and why it was so done. So we have with us Dr. Joshua. He's no one new, but his expertise, we all know, is recognized by various organizations. For FFFAI, he has taken many webinars, but apart from FFFAI, he's included not only with the board, all tax research units, CII, and his vast knowledge in law colleges, trade association, and other Indian officials, Indian customs officials. So he has an educational background with an MBA in SCM and a PhD also in eschatology studies. Am I correct, Dr. Joshua? Combined with his current law studies, enriches his deep understanding of the field. His extensive experience and commitment establish him as an inspirational figure in international trade. And we are really privileged to have him share his valuable insights with us today. So what I would suggest is, before our chairman joins and gives a formal welcome to all the participants, all the attendees in this webinar, I would request Dr. Joshua to give a brief outline, and then we can go into the more practical aspects, if that is fine with you, Doctor. So I think you should start giving a brief introduction of why this Carotar came, what is the background, and what is the importance of having this rule, and why this rule was actually brought in when everything was going fine at a certain point of time. So over to you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you, Sudhirji. I must thank all my fellow panelists, starting from Samir sir, Ramakrishna sir, Shankar bhai, Dushan bhai, my good friend Tej, and other friends. So happy to also see our Director General of FFFAI, Dr. Sant. Good evening to you as well, and my other friends. When we talk to importers in the country, of course, we have to teach them. We have to bring in a lot of insights, which they aren't privy to it. But when we talk to a service provider, and that too a reputed service provider regime, that is customs brokers. If I go and start something like a kindergarten, that will be insulting, definitely, because you are all stalwarts of this country. I always acknowledge in every forum, in every session, one thing. The best intelligent group in the world is customs brokers because of their diversified knowledge in everything. They may not be mastering on particular subject, but they can handle any situation, any crisis. They can talk to any segment because of their vastness in the short span. So any custom broker in this country, if you see 20 years, 30 years, they are equal to at least having 2, 3 PhDs. To that level, they do not have that recognition, but they have contributed and they could talk and they could share their insights, which is still considered as so valuable for the government, and their inputs are always considered, and the government is considering that and making changes, making amendments to have the ease of doing business implemented in our country. So first of all, I'm very glad to address all of you in this happy new year. So I must greet, wishing you all a prosperous and happy new year to you. The topic, though, it says Carotar, the Carotar, as Sudeep sir said. How then we got into this trap? He asked me to give me a brief about this as well. Why do we get into this Carotar? What was the real reason behind it? So unless we don't understand certain conceptual things, because when I address August gathering, I should always assume I have learned friends as well as people who are hungry to know about concepts, to know about certain things, and not to complicate with a lot of acronyms. We have to dissect it in such a way that we take everybody on the board and help them to understand what is this concept that we are dealing with it. I also want to remind you every time when a custom session happens, this is also very important for me to reiterate. In the world, there are 3 pillars. Among the 3 pillars, one is rules of origin. So having our expertise developed in HSN and Article Roman 7 doesn't suffice. Though in India, the rules of origin were not so important a few years back, but that is very important globally. That is why we call it as pillars. Now, under that circumstances today, when we are going to divulge on one pillar, I might hand it over back to Dushyant to do his discussion and then to take it forward further. Over to you, Dushyant.
Thank you, Dr. Joshua, sir. It's always a big education for all of our members having you on board. And knowledge, as you always convey, knowledge is power. Today, with such a huge attendance that we have, members, I'm so happy that they have participated in this feedback. And Sudeep ji has already shared feedback that we have received from our members. It's a vast list that members have shared about their experience under Carotar. And on behalf of all FFFAI members, we would want you to just put it in maybe 3 segments, means going through the feedback which has come. We had undertaken an exercise to take feedback on a Google form, that when we receive the document from our clients, what are the, before filing of the bill of entry, what are the precautions to be taken? In case of deficiencies, what to be communicated with the importer first. Second, once we submit, and then if there is a query during assessment, what are the factors that we what is the law actually which can help us to have query replies, give the query replies and answer to the queries totally on legal terms. And lastly, if at all there are any provisional assessments to be carried out, what are the provisions for that? Who has the power? Under what circumstances provisional assessment can resorted to? And if provisional assessment is resorted, then to close the provisional assessment, what are the timelines? Because we find today our members have reported that provisional assessments are pending bond bank guarantees for 2 to 3 years now. And there's no feedback coming up. That is where we need to educate our members. What is the law? How they can approach the authorities if this is the situation. And lastly, we found that Carotar has been in vogue for last 3 years at least. More than 3 years, slightly. Now, there have been several notices, shokos, post-clearance audit memos, and in some of the shokos, they have implicated custom brokers also, which I shared few cases with you. So as a precautionary measure, how one can fortify ourselves with the entire Carotar Rules 2020, the Customs Instruction 18 of 2021, CBIC Circular of 19 of 2021, the FAQs, and the Board Circular 38 of 2020. Surely FFFAI would be sharing all these material once again to members on Carotar, along with Joshua sir's presentation, what he gives. So thank you, all of you, for being here. All my past chairman, board of advisors, and office bearers are here. And we look forward to Joshua sir's guidance further in this segment. Over to you, Joshua sir.
Thank you, Dushant. So I was continuing again. So what I was trying to help the trade, the eminent trade, that is our fraternity. I'm sure some of the people in this call may be importers, maybe from outside custom brokers, but all of you have studied free trade agreements, how that works. It's not something new concept, but still the way in which the questions are coming to us, whether third country invoicings are allowed under the direct shipment. When I do a stock at this point in area in this particular country, will it be considered as a direct shipment? Now, importers are also very tricky in putting the ball in customs broker's court and telling that you file the bill of entry. This is what it is, and they are convincing something. Bills are getting filed, and then it is queried, and then we go back and ask the importer, this is what you said, that is what we declared. Now there is a show cause notice coming in, like what Dushan said. Genuinely implicated custom brokers are also there. Unwantedly, for no good reason, custom brokers are also getting implicated. So we will see that as well. So always, I would like to take all the considerations, all the feedbacks, what I have received, and I would like to divide the session into 3 parts. My first session is going to be purely on fundamentals, concepts, because unless we don't understand these fundamental concepts, it is very difficult for us to understand what we are dealing with and how we need to deal with. So always there is a 2 split. The second one moves into procedures. Okay, that is where the Carotar rules are coming in. The second one, apart from the concepts, there is a procedures. And the third one, suggestions. So concepts, procedures, suggestions. In this 3 way, we will try to deal with it. My disclaimer is, I am not practically doing customs clearance day to day. So the knowledge what you possess, I may not have. So I may be good in concepts, I may be good in suggestions, I may have little procedural knowledge. So you need to pardon me and you need to bear with me in case if I make any mistakes. My acknowledgement as well there. Thank you so much. Somebody raised their hand. Any question? All right. So the story goes, Very interesting. Today, every world, they used to say, all roads towards Rome. Now, every country is looking into India and they are asking, can we have free trade agreement? Everyone, even 2 days back in Economic Times, GTRI, Mr. Ajay Srivatsava, he has reported a very interesting article where many countries are trying, developed countries as well as developing countries, small countries like UK, Europe, even countries like Oman, Peru. These are the countries who are trying to see how they can explore trade agreements with India. If you see global level, our duty rates stands around 12.6%, which creates a hurdle as you compare to other countries like UK, 4%, USA 2.3%, Canada 3%. India's rate is pretty high. So another second reason on the free trade, what GTRI reported, that our country may not have sufficient trade surplus as expected always. This is a news. Because anytime when there are two countries are getting into an agreement, what is expected? A trade surplus, not trade deficit, right? So what they project is, there is always a concept called MFN, most favored nation treatment. Because some of the people who are studying this WTO agreements, you all aware, the concept of MFN slightly have some overlapping with Article Roman 24. That is the RTA, Regional Trade Agreement. Why India may not have that advantage? Because if you see the global countries, almost like import duty disparities with Canada 70%, Switzerland 61%, US 58%. If you compare, the lag with India is only 6.1% of our global imports are coming under MFN. So these countries are all already having MFN at zero rate duty. So this is one current scenario. In generally, what is MFN for those people who have not understood? If a country gives a benefit to another country, that same benefit to be rendered to across the WTO members. So if I give a concessional preferential rate of duty to Sri Lanka, I'm also expected to render the same benefit to other countries. That is MFN. Now, how then we can get into Article 24? Because that gives an exception that the members are allowed to have a free trade agreement. Now, this is polluting almost 400 plus agreements are currently there. So, which means every country left and right, they are trying to have free trade agreement. Everybody wants to have a free trade. What does it mean? Which means what benefit I'm going to give it to another country will not be available to other countries because I have a protection. So this protection is more and more increasing in the current scenario. If you look back 30 years back, it was a globalization concept, right? Now, if every countries are moving into America first, make in India, India first, it's me. Recently UAE government is saying it's our country needs to develop a lot of trade and services as well. We have 60% of our lands are vacant. Why not you come and use it? They are pushing in that way. So what we see, countries are moving towards securing their domestic market and also trying to compete in the international market. So when they are moving more and more into FTA with our 3.7 trillion economy, even now, the learned segment customs brokers definitely should have some fundamental understanding on the concepts. So in that concept, what we try to unfold today, the first and foremost thing, we use the word called FTA. Many of you are familiar. FTAs, PTAs, SICA, and SIPA. So we are using these four acronyms, but still there are new acronyms like RCEP. With Australia, we are bringing a new word. All these things denotes one simple concept. What is that one simple concept? That objective is that we need to reduce the trade barriers. Reduce the trade barrier. So how do you reduce trade barrier in the preferential rate? How do you do preferential trade agreement? We provide only selective advantage for selective products from a particular country. That means it's bilateral. for a selective products. So we keep certain product as positive and negative, and also we keep it as sensitive. So which means it's a very, very small framework. When you move to FTA, that actually includes goods as well as services. So we are all familiar with GATT. GATT handles all the goods. Free trade agreement also includes services. So which means it also includes GATS, GATS, General Agreement on Trade in Services as well. So does it stop with only services? It has, yes, of course. It will go further down to broader the FTA. What we call it as investments comes into play. And other areas of economic partnership, whatever that we are doing it, we call it as a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement. We still move to the larger segment, the wider scope in the FTA that is called, which covers not only economic cooperation, also cultural exchange. Like our country is very well known for yoga. So we go and teach yoga in another country, technical cooperation and more. Probably we'll see those things. So this is how the 4 segments have been divided. When we see about an FTA, the moment you see one agreement, we directly take the notification as a customs broker. We read that notification, what it says, which product, what rate of duty. Then we follow Carotar procedure and we file the bill of entry. But I would recommend here, if you wanted to have some good understanding on the subject, whichever everybody may not be handling all the FTAs, right? Whichever the FTAs that you are handling, take the framework, read the framework once. The framework is a replica of the non-tariff notification which you are having it. That agreement, what we call it as between 2 countries, have been created as a legislative. That delegated legislative document will give you one perspective saying that the agreement, what you deal with it, what is it? Is it a PTA or a EHS, or if it is an FTA or a CECA or a CEPA? So the broker's first responsibility is to see what beast that we deal with it. Because once you start reading it, that will unfold you for that particular agreement, what was negotiated and what was agreed. There are 90% may be identical, the 10% are specific to the rules of origin. So that is why always we need to read rules of origin. Why I am telling you, your procedural Carotar can be overruled by rules of origin. Are you aware about it? If you see rule 8.3, which very clearly says, in case if the rules of origin tells you this is how a process to be followed, 1, 2, 3, but your Carotar or your standing order or any of the public notices issued, which deviates from 1 to 3 and slightly adds 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus, you can always go back to the department and you can cite as per rule 8.3 that the rules of origin prevails over it. So this is a powerful understanding, first and foremost, that we need to have. Where we miss the bus is we never read the framework, we never read the rules of origin. All we are interested in looking into whether our product is covered, what is the RVC, and how we can move into Form I, right? So this is the fundamental thing that we need to understand to distinguish how many types of agreements that we are dealing with it and how this happens. Now, you are always talking to importers. Your point of contact is importers. And you're always dealing with customs officers. So there are 2 set of learned people availing your service. Now, how do we play the role? If my understanding is very good in the subject, which means apart from this 4, what else happening around the world? How these concepts are prevailing? Some little bit of how globally this mega trade agreements works. Because agreements always you need to remember bilateral agreements, unilateral agreements, and regional trade agreements. So when you say bilateral agreement or unilateral agreement, what is the difference between these 2? When Mr. Modi travels and goes to Bangladesh, or when Mr. Modi goes to Bhutan and he says, I will give you something to you without any expectation from you. That kind of agreement, we call it as unilateral agreement. It is one-sided agreement, which means absolutely there is no condition. You don't need to fulfill any rules of origin, nothing to be fulfilled. When you export it, you will get this benefit. Can you think about something like that? Can any one of you can think about whether India having some benefits like that? You can name this GSP for that example. If you as a developing country supplying the goods to me, I will give you a preferential duty. European Union is giving. These kind of an agreements, we call it as unilateral agreement. So we have about some 34 agreements are there. India with various developing nations or least developed country. The second level that we come to is known as bilateral agreement, which means between me and another country, we have this kind of an agreement. These agreements are negotiated very hard. When they negotiate such agreements, always there are various factors were taken into consideration. Very interesting thing that you can harp on and think about it. Can anyone in this group can put it in the chat box and say how many such bilateral agreements India is having? Can anyone put it in the chat box? How many such bilateral agreements India is having? $17. Wow, 35. Very good. Only 2 people. Out of 300 people, only 2 people are saying that. Wow, 12. Mr. Divyanshu Gupta is very close. Rakesh is 15. Very good. So some of you have understood what is bilateral agreement. To name a few, India, Sri Lanka, which happened in 2000, India, Japan, SIPA, India, Korea, SIPA, India, Malaysia, SICA. We use the word partnership and cooperation. Always you remember, when I cooperate, when me and Dushyant are cooperating, okay, so which means we're just signing an MOU and we're starting the cooperation. But when we understand each other, we move to the next level of partnership. So that is why partnership is a matured state, right? Forget about Nepal, we have a treaty there. We also consider that as well inside. So Thailand, Chile, Afghanistan, Singapore, Bhutan, we all this kind of things are considered as bilateral agreement, Australia and UAE. One question. Have you ever noticed, because Sudeep ji has asked a question, why Carotar? Why Carotar? Because I'm bound to give you a response to that as well, right? Have you ever noticed post 2000, let's put it in this way, after this Modi government comes into play, have you ever seen any bilateral agreements being signed or a multilateral agreement signed? You would not have seen a single agreement. Why? Yes, of course, everything happened after 2020. You may say Afghanistan agreement had happened in 2013. Okay, that's a pre-negotiated agreement. It's not having a very significant economic impact. Okay, so we'll discount. So post 2010-11, you had a lot of agreements, SICA, SIPA, Malaysia, Korea, Singapore, Japan. Everything is 11-10. After that, there was a deep silence. You know why? When Mr. Piyush Goyal took over this office, he was a brilliant chartered accountant. All of you may be aware about Mr. Piyush Goyal. When he took over his office, he said many countries were approaching, especially when that RCEP fallout happened, because RCEP also, maybe some of you are familiar, some of you are not familiar. We have ASEAN 10 countries. Apart from ASEAN, other 6 countries under China trying to create 16 countries regional cooperation economic partnership, where India negotiated and we did not sign up for various reasons, which is known to you. The help of the time, Mr. Piyush Goyal took over this. And he said, okay, let's review this. How many bilateral agreements that we have? When he took over all the list of agreements and we started, a chartered accountant, what he will do? He will first think, what is my bottom line, right? Any agreement, if is there any benefit for me to do it? So he started looking, believe me, every agreement that we had went into trade deficit. Every agreement. In other words, what is trade deficit? 2 countries are having business agreement. Let's take you and me. I export this, which means you give me dollars. When you export, I give you dollar. Suppose if you don't export, I have a lot of dollar reserves, you have lesser dollar. When I export, you give me a lot of dollars. So which means the balance of trade is increasing one side. That is known as trade surplus and trade deficit. When Mr. Goyal said this doesn't work for a country like us, we cannot enter into any such agreement when there is no good negotiations available. So then what did happen? We went to the negotiation table. When we went to the negotiation table, the other parties sitting across and they presented a data. We also said, see, look, we are in trade deficit because of the following data. The other side said, all your data are wrong. Almost 60% of our data were projected incorrectly. And then we came back to India. We said, DG Statistics has produced this data. How did DG Statistics gave this data incorrectly? That was a little small investigation started. When this investigation started, they found out this data as DG Statistics did not manufacture it. It was garbage in, garbage out, which means IceGate has given this data and DG Statistics populated it. That's all. Then they went to IceGate. Please tell me, Mr. IceGate, who gave you this data? IceGate says we are not manufacturing. It is the importers who have filed the bill of entry. Who gave the data? That is what we are projecting. Then who is that importer who is filing? It is the All India Customs Brokers. What customs brokers are filing? Whatever is appearing on the invoice, whatever the HS codes are there, we try to fit in, only a peculiar situation in India. All over the world, the experts will first do the classification and then they will look into what is the rate of duty applicable to me. Only in India, first the trade will look into which is the rate of duty which is very conducive for me. Then they will go back and see how I can fit in into the classification. I am not blaming trade. Even customs too does that. Only in India. That is why we need to be all the more careful. Now, they were very conveniently putting everything under others. The moment you classify goods under residual heading, you will not have data because all of you are aware, right? 4 dash, what it talks about it. We need micro level information to bifurcate the 2 dash further down. When you are not able to bifurcating, you are directly putting into another single dash others. You're gone. I don't know. I know it is mango, but what kind of a mango? I don't even know whether it is Banganapalli or whether it is Alfonsa. I will not have the statistics. Then how will I be able to negotiate with the trade with another country? That is where I fail. So then Mr. Goyal got very angry. He came out and issued a facility circular, trade circular. He said, all the importers in this country need to take your residual heading and put it in a specific heading. How do you do that? I have powers to create digit number 6 tariff line and 7. You ask me, I will create because I have the power. You apply, you do it. Otherwise, I will ban. I'm not joking. It's not a story. It is public. October 2019, till 20, there was a cutoff time was given. Many importers responded to it, and we too acknowledged and we too helped many customers. But of course, COVID came in and everything was kept aside. After that, the concept of negotiation completely changed. And then we are trying to, the newspapers reported Diwali 2023, UK and India will sign an agreement. Has that happened? Did not happen. Negotiation still goes on. That's how. So what we're trying to say is we're trying to secure our domestic market and also trying to develop the competitiveness, thinking that where we will be in 10 years now. If I allow this to happen, will I also have a mutual reciprocation export from our country? All right. So this is how bilateral agreements and unilateral agreements in India operates. So what does it mean, regional agreements? Are you aware about what are regional agreements? One example, anybody can type in the group. Okay, you all said it correctly or closely. We have close to 12. I think Divyanshu, one person, has typed 12. Correct answer. Congratulations to Divyanshu. Okay, let's ask. Do you know India? How many trade agreements at least we have? Anybody can put it in the chat for a minute. ASEAN, very good. Satish Nair said ASEAN. Very good. So we get SAFTA. Very, very nice. So we are familiar with India ASEAN agreement. Very good. 10 countries. APTA agreement, SAFTA agreement, Mercosur, and GSP. Okay, that is a different concept from 1989. Right. So we are familiar with this. Okay, very nice. So we know about how this is being operated. But let us see how Article 27 motivates us. Article 24 of WTO motivates us. How many agreements apart? What all we have seen? Number one is we have seen unilateral agreements. We have seen bilateral agreements. We have seen regional agreements. Have you heard about this word called mega trade agreements? Anytime? Anybody in this group? Can you name any one mega trade agreement in the world? Any one in the group? Have you heard about mega trade agreements? Okay, let me just say Trans-Pacific Partnership or Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, RCEP. India is not party to it, but still it is up and running with 15 countries. That means ASEAN 10 countries plus 5 countries. That is Japan, Korea, Singapore, China and other countries, New Zealand and Australia. NAFTA, European Union. So which means Trans-Pacific Atlantic. Now we are talking about India with different countries, but globally how it works is 12 countries, TPP, which involves, Australia, Brunei, the list goes on. Trans-Atlantic and Trans-Trade and Investment Partnership. So this is something with European Union and United States. We have an agreement. RCEP, I've told you. NAFTA, which got recently renamed as USMCA, right? United States, Mexico, and Canada Agreement. European Union Agreement. So this is how we have mega trade agreements prevailing. Let us take one agreement and I will still elucidate how this progresses towards it and how India is also likely to progress towards the same direction. As of today, we have heard about preferential FTA. Now we are moving to partnership. From partnership, where do you think that's the pinnacle, that's the height we have reached? No, we are now going to move ahead. How? You will be able to connect the dots. For example, I will take European Union. Okay. So in European Union, we have something known as customs union. Heard about it? What does it mean? Trade between two countries are absolutely, that means 27 economies, 27 countries, you can move from one place to another place. Tariff is common tariff. So that is, the customs becomes one country. According to customs, it's only one country. It becomes a union of customs. Now, is there a possibility that India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan can happen? May happen, may not happen. Wait and see. There are something is likely to happen. Okay, very good. Then how this customs union, the first advancement, will convert it into a market. How it will convert it? It will be converted into a common market. Is this something going to happen? You may be surprised it had happened in one side. It is likely to happen in many parts of the world. How? The customs union will further facilitate the next level called free movement, not only goods, also the labor, also the capital, even the technical standards. For example, if you test a product and if you export it, I will never question the testing capability. Today, European Union exporting a particular item and they are giving a report. Indian government is saying, no, we will send our officers and we'll verify, or we will take samples and we will verify. So which means I am not accepting unless there is a AEO MRA in place. If there is a AEO MRA in place, obviously this collaboration is there. So in the common market, these technical standards will become common. So capital and labors can move. So is that all that we are going to expect? The next level is the union. So in economic union, so what we have seen is customs union, common market, then we move to economic union. Economic union is an ultimate thing, which means that common market is further extending to a very significant legislative institutions. For example, this is how, for example, European Court of Justice. You heard about it, right? European Court of Justice. So this is how you will have one shared executive, which means you will not see multiple countries having multiple executives. It is one judicial system. It is one monetary policy. This is how this will be evolving. So the subject that what we are dealing today, the subject what we are dealing is going to settled with the CEPA. It is advancing towards market and then economic union. And India, some news are not out, but government is working in a very big way. So if that be the case, origin plays a vital role. Origin plays a vital role. So how do we understand origin? What is the basic understanding? Why do origin has so much alarming situation? My concept is very simple. You send me something, if it is of your origin, I will give you the benefit. This is the ultimate basic understanding. I don't want to receive someone else's goods through your country and you claiming it as origin. Okay, that is one. So practically, is it possible for me to bring everything from one country? I will say no. I have to get some raw materials. I have to get it processed. Then only I'll be sending. Then that's where the question comes in. Where do we draw the line? Where do we say that this is originated, this is non-originated? Where do we say this is wholly originated? That line, when we draw, that is where negotiation comes into play. Because that is where hard negotiation comes in. A country which will produce, which will create, a country which will not have that capability, but still they wanted to export it through them. It is a hub. So how do the other receiving country agrees or disagrees to it? So one country, for example, it says that, look, I situated in a place where it is central location. All the surrounding countries comes to me and I have big mega warehouses. I do some minimum operation or I do some process. I am giving labor intensive opportunities here and every countries are coming here dumping their goods. We do this operations and from here we are exporting it out. So we are saying it is originated from our country. Now India needs to say, look, you tell me what process that you're doing. If you do some kind of a minimum operations and you claim it is a manufacturing, sorry, we cannot accept it. So what they say is certain basic operations, for example, removing dust, sorting, classifying, cutting, washing, painting, or switching packaging methods. There is a list of labeling, basic mixing when it is a liquid, assembling, disassembling, slaughtering, dilution. There is a big list of MOP is given in a particular origin. Now, this is where the brokers needs to be. See, importers may not read. They will only look into it. Do we have a rules of origin with the country? The answer is yes. What is the value addition percentage? They will get a a certificate of origin in the same way from another country and give it to you. You file the bill. That was history. That was history. Now, since 2020, we are in a different regime. Why? I'll try to explain that with this concept. When I say that this minimum operations, what you are performing in your country, may give revenue to you, may give employment to your country, may increase your GDP, but I don't care about it unless it undergoes a substantial value addition. That is where the confusion comes. What is substantial value addition? Substantial value addition is very simple. 4-digit or 6-digit tariff change has to happen. All of you need not to understand, right? 2 digits chapter, 4 digits heading, 6 digits subheading, and 8 digits are tariff lines. That is a way that we stack it up. What we say, as long as there is a 4-digit shift is happening, I will agree that it is originating from your country. For example, I usually use a simple example for everybody to understand. A tree is fell down. Somebody is felling, let's say 1,000 trees, and they take the wood from there. What do we call it as? Wood log. Where do you classify a wood log? Anybody can say? 44th chapter. All of you are aware. 44th chapter we classify. Then you take the wood and try to bring it into a factory. You process it. What it becomes? Let's say the table in which that you and me are sitting at, good wooden table furniture. Where do you classify? Put it under chapter 94. So what happens here? How many digit classification transformation happened? At a 6-digit level, this has happened. So which means definitely I will agree it is originated from your country. So beautiful, no? So there are product specific rules are also there. What kind of a process is considered as a PSR related? That every rules are defining it PSR as well. So the other country is only expecting one thing. Is it originated from your country? Or is it not originated from your country? So the confusion happens, disputes happens, verification process are initiated, bank guarantees, PD assessment, show cause notice, everything. If you do a kappa or if you do a root cause analysis, if you go back where I went wrong, where my importers gone wrong, nothing else in determining the rules of origin. Now the question is here, whatever the trade says, if you follow, and the government goes back to the trade, if there is a mistake, you and me have no problem. There is no role for a consultant. There is no role for a broker. You just facilitate. That's it. But here, there is a twist happening in India. They are shedding out their responsibility on you. They say you are filing the document and you are assessing the document. The context in our mindset needs to change. When I am filing, it is not filing. I am actually assessing. When I assess, I put the cap of a customs officer. When you assess means who is assessing? The importer is assessing. When importer is assessing, he is empowering you. The broker is assessing. When you are an assessment officer, what before 2020 an appraising officer, or sorry, before self-assessment could introduce what an assessment officer will be doing, before a section 17 amendment comes in, what customs officer were doing, that exact work you and me are expected to do. Does it make sense? We are no more a transactional people. So which means that is a shift which has happened. Now the question what Dushyant has beautifully put it, again the line, which is the line where importers needs to take the responsibility and where the broker's responsibility or accountability starts and ends, there is absolutely a gray area. And in order to draw the line, it is imperative for every broker to have a solid understanding on these concepts. Because when you have an understanding on the concepts, you can go back and you can counter your importer in a right way. We can also do the same thing to customs. Because today, many of you are experts because you run a consulting company as well. There are a larger segment of the community are still struggling to comprehend this concept. That is where they are going to a consultant asking transactional wise. For example, many of you are married, you have children. If your son or a daughter comes to you and says, "Hey, look, I have studied history, I hearted it. Okay, how much mark you will get? I will get 90 or 95%. You and me can believe because they studied, they by-hearted it, they will go and depict what they have studied. Mugging is also possible. But the same comes into the mathematics. When there is a concept of mathematics, the children, if they don't understand concepts, if they mug it up, in the exam, if they change the question, if they change the figures, do you think that they will succeed? They will obviously fail. Exactly the same way, if we don't understand what my rules of origin wants from me, you will not be able to communicate this clearly to your importer. Neither when customs, by mistakenly, customs can do mistakes, 100% they can do mistakes, right? You and me will agree to, right? If customs cannot do mistakes, which means there won't be litigation. So every litigation is being appealed further. What does it mean? I don't agree with you. Every importers are taking up customs decision and they're appealing. What does it mean? I don't agree with you. Every appeal is mostly upheld and tribunal is giving a result against customs. What does it mean? You are wrong. You're wrong. You understand? So which means what we need to understand one thing is customs can make mistakes. Yes, they can make mistakes. Whether it is willfully they're making mistake or ignorantly they are making mistake, that is subjective. Now we come back. That is uncontrollable. What is controllable? Can the broker make mistakes? Can we do mistakes? Can we allow our importers to make mistakes? These both are very relevant questions today. Now, I was told, I do not know the correct data, 75% of the country's customs brokers are the real people who are guiding their importers. Maybe 25% of the importers, they take the shots on their own. 75%, if anything happens, first port of call is, sir, how should I turn, left or right? What answer do we have? Now, if I guide them incorrectly, they will simply trust you. And finally, they are facing the heat, right? So for that reason, my friends, this is not a workshop. Don't also take this as a seminar because, every time our human mind is tuned in such a way. When we attend a session, first thing, what we will ask, what is that I do not know this person is going to talk? I'm sure even that sometimes, I also cross that. We need to, there are few people, they're very humble. They always try, however big learned people, they always try to keep their eyes and ears open, try to learn something new. Now, here, what we are trying to understand here is how this particular agreement, what I have, all the while, suppose if you might have dealt with two agreements, have you ever, take ASEAN, very oldest agreement, have you ever read from the first word to the last word what it says? Have you ever read it? Or if you're a owner of a company, have you taken an initiative to tell your team, come, this Saturday we will read ASEAN, we'll finish. Next Saturday we will read this agreement. If you don't read it today, if you would have read it today, we would be making representations at this stage. Since we have not read it, we do not know our right standing or a locus standi or the rights that where we need to stand up and say, no, Mr. Dushyant Mulani said at the beginning, there are bank guarantees collected by customs and 2 years it is pending. Now, friends, just imagine when whose money it is, every bank guarantee it costs. Who executed a bank guarantee? It is an importer. And what importer can do, only you will be able to assist them. Bank guarantees are not closed. And 2 years, we are still accepting it. Why we could not take any steps against our customer? Why you did not go to the court? Why you did not write a mail to TSK? Why you did not write to the nodal officer? Why you did not write to any escalation point which is there in the 38 of 2020? I thought, okay, let someone bell the cat. Okay, let me do my transaction. So for that reason, these understandings are imperative. So we have seen the basic elements on the concepts of rules of origin. Now, how do rules of origin determine? What is a fulcrum? One fulcrum of this origin is only one word. Can anyone tell me the entire rules of origin stands on one point or one fulcrum? Can you type what is that one point? One important aspects or one important element. That is the fulcrum. What is the line? Can anyone type in the chat box? Domestic, no. What is the fulcrum of a rules of origin? Rules of origin means what? There is one word. Okay, who manufactures it? Okay, material procured. I'm expecting a word, very common word, duty benefit agreement. All right, due to the paucity of time, let me just check anybody hitting value addition. Yes, absolutely. I am getting the right word from one person. XYZ has written as value addition. What is it? Value addition. So the rules of origin fulcrum is defined on one simple philosophy called RVC, regional value content. Wholly obtained, no need for any explanation. If there is a crop, it is fully grown in your country, it is wholly obtained. Now, how do you determine an RVC? Now, I wanted to share here my slide, maybe a few slides which will be very helpful to you. I will help you sharing the slides. Just go through this. How do we determine rules of RVC? What you see in the screen, I'm using India ASEAN for our better understanding. The material cost, the labor cost, the overhead cost, plus other cost, plus your profit upon FOB. Now, this is a direct method. You also have multiplied by 100%, it will give you what is the value addition. Very true. Okay, this is a direct method. All of you are aware. Is there any other method? There is another method called indirect method. Value of the imported, very cleverly, the word you need to understand, the values of the non-originating material parts are produced plus value of undetermined origin material and parts, where I don't know which is the origin, undetermined, both put together on the FOB price will tell you. So you as an importer and exporter, the first right what you have is you can choose either one of this. Now, some of you may be getting confused. What is this originating cost? What is this direct labor? Let me just explain you with one example so that you don't forget it. Okay. So now I'm just putting an example on the screen. Okay. Now this screen says, imagine See, I'm spending some time here because your Carotar argument stands on RVC. Your whole Carotar understanding stands on RVC. Before I move into Carotar, why? So pay close attention to me. You can use any other example, but I'm just using this example, which I found it in the internet. Okay, imagine there is a toy company in India producing a toy car. Here, the cost associated with the left side, I've given the formula, direct method formula. So I'm using this Asian agreement. The plastic used for the toy is sourced from an Asian country. The cost is $2. So you can make a note in your diary, $2. The labor cost is $1. So it becomes 3. Then there is an overhead cost, which is about 50 cents per toy. So it becomes 3.50. Other cost, another 30 cents. Profit, 1.2 cents. Now the total is I had given in the formula. Can you see it? Using the direct method, 2 plus 1 plus 0.5 plus 0.3 plus 1.2 upon 5. That is the FOB price multiplied by this. So what is the value addition here? We are getting 100% value addition. Will it qualify? Of course, it will qualify. So assume the same thing. We move to the next method. Now in the indirect method, let's say how we can calculate a cost. If there is a watch manufacturing company, the watch mechanism, which is imported from Switzerland, okay, costing $40. And which means what I used a word here in the formula, value of imported non-ASEAN material. That means AI means ASEAN India FTA. That is why I'm using the word AIFTA. Okay. So value of Switzerland material. Switzerland is not part of ASEAN. So value of non-originating material is $40. Now, value of undetermined origin material, parts and produce, which means I am not able to determine. I don't know from which country it came. It was lying in. It is not originated from my country for sure. It would have been imported or it would have been brought into my country, some small pin, something. Cost is $10. So 40 plus 10 is 50. Now, this watch is sold internationally at a price of $150, adding all the profit. Now, what is the formula? 40 plus 10 upon 150, which is equal to 33%. Suppose if that particular, what is the value addition in India ASEAN agreement? Or even you can go on the AIFTA agreement is 35%. Now, the value addition is not meeting here. It is only saying 33.3%. Now, question is, today, in this session, one thing is if you miss one part, it is very difficult for you to connect the later part. Okay. That is why I'm trying to connect, asking you to connect the dots. Keep your notebooks also. Now, assume in a situation, I have given you all the information. It is very easily for you as a customs officer, because you are the one assessing the bill of entry, right? You and your importer. So for you, you have a clarity. Now, assume that you do not know this cost. What you will do? Can you produce this cost from your own source? Answer is definitely no. You cannot produce this cost. So to whom you should ask? In the absence of this information, who should you ask for it? Can anyone put it in this chat box? This information, 35% as a broker, I have an agreement. 35% is the value addition which is there. Certificate of origin is not available. Or say, let's assume certificate of origin says 40%. Okay. But what the law says that you need to have sufficient information. Importer supposed to know. But how will an importer in India possess this information and satisfy himself? Yes, I am claiming the right RVC. Obviously, he need to go back to his supplier. Had only the supplier is related, they can command them, hey, give it to me, intercompany. They will give. But if they are importing it from an unknown person, what will happen? Do you think they will say, if you want to take the material, otherwise I am not interested in negotiating further? How will somebody will tell you what is my originating cost product? What is my non-originating cost? What is my profit? That is why you have two methods, direct method or indirect method. So now the point is, why customs worried about this value method? Because a lot of camouflaging activities have took place. Who has done it? Many countries, many importers purposefully have done this. Today for 200 rupees, they are sending a demand notice. Section 28(4) has been invoked for even small amount, and they are putting a penalty. But here, through our own eyes, we are able to see a huge leak is happening, but we do not know how to curtail it. All right, let me just go back and continue our discussion. I'll again go back to the screen and try to share some more information to bring you up in the same page. The next one. So you have seen value addition. Now I'm posting from the same side a method called cumulative method. In the same rules of origin, they have accepted, yes, you can also use the rules of origin with this kind of a method. As a broker, have we ever thought about what is cumulative method? Of course, some of you are very familiar. You would have studied it. I'm talking about the remaining 80%. 20% always at 80-20 rules will prevail. Okay. So when I say broker, it's all the 80% of the broker, not for the 20%. You are up to date and there is no problem in that. The other side, I'm hearing this word cumulative for the first time. Maybe yes. I have never heard about it. This is there in your origin. How do you understand this? Suppose if there is some goods which is originating, I am put in the left side. See, though I have not put the entire ASEAN countries, I've just put some of the countries over there. So this is ASEAN countries. All the countries are there within ASEAN. Okay. Now Indonesia raw material is supplied to Malaysia. Indonesia is supplying to Malaysia. So what will happen? The raw material of Indonesia becomes an input for Malaysia. So Malaysia is using that raw material and producing something and supplying to Vietnam. So the raw material is processed, received from Indonesia, processed in Malaysia, added some local content, sent to Vietnam. Vietnam again processed it and supplied to India as under the free trade agreement, telling that these goods are originated from my country. That is what the certificate of origin claims. Now, I am asking you to put it in the chat box, telling me, does it qualify India, ASEAN, FTA? Yes or no? Only yes or no. Just put it in the chat box. Okay. One person called Mr. Gupta. Oh, my goodness. Everybody said yes. One person says no. J. Santosh says no. Mr. Bosle says no. So we see majority of the people are saying yes. No, no, no. Oh, no is taking up. Okay. We should have done a quick poll here, looks like. Okay, very good. So no problem. This gives an idea. So which means this audience to whom I'm addressing is not absolute. See, the reason why I'm asking you to put a chat box is to see where do the audience stands? Where do we stand, right? So this audience per se is not having consistent feedback. So one audience is saying, or 50% of the audience are saying, yes, they can avail, and 50% of the audience saying, no, we cannot avail. So for the benefit of everyone, I'm asking those people who said no, could you please just put an answer? Why do you say no? Because if it is an in-person session, I would have definitely asked this question. Could anyone say, why did you say no? Let me, many people said, yes, I salute you. Many people said, no, I salute you both, because it is assembled in Vietnam. That is why you're saying no, because the certificates of raw products are carried on. Okay, I'm not getting the correct picture. Probably you should try to explain to me in a better way. Let me just, we need to move on. Not a lot of things to cover. So the answer is, wait, I will just put another question. Suppose I told you the first material or raw material one is originating from Indonesia. Now I am moving outside the AC. From Germany, I am taking an item that is coming inside Indonesia. That means one is non-ASEAN country supplying. So there are two cases I presented before you. One is Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam supplying to India. Another one is Germany sending a non-originating material that is used in Indonesia and coming here. So what will be the answer? The answer should be yes, you can claim the last country. So the cumulative method, what it says is very simple. If your country is situated within that region, which means if you are situated within ASEAN, even you can buy it from all 10 countries. Even if the goods are coming from India, India is supplying to Vietnam, India is supplying to Malaysia, or India is supplying to Indonesia, even all these origins can be counted. The last origin will be taken as originated goods and all the value additions happens will be added to it. So in cumulative method, yes, they can avail the benefit. But when it comes from outside that ring, outside this origin, and that will not be counted. So that is where you need to be very clear about this understanding. Okay. All right. So this is one way of understanding origin. There are many more examples which we can keep giving in case if you are, maybe I'll share with one more example, then I will move further. Okay. I'll share one more example for you to prick your, to prick your brain. Now, if you see, or maybe I will discuss this later. Okay. So now we have to cover a lot of portions. All right. Okay. So this is how origins are determined. So cumulative we have seen. Third country invoicing. Now this is something very, very frequently people used to ask me. Okay, so the third country, the goods can be supplied based on the rules of origin. Invoice can happen from Dubai. Invoice can happen from anywhere. Okay, so direct consignment. Suppose, for example, if a person is sending goods from North America, name a country from North America. Okay, these goods are meant for India. Those goods are meant for India. Now, every agreement will have one clause. In direct consignment, there may be some countries where they may not have port. What will happen? These goods will go and get offloaded in a transshipment point. The goods cannot be unloaded for any processing there. It can be just lying there. And once you get a transshipment connection, it has to come to the destination country. Now, this is allowed. The clause very clearly says. But when you move a country illogically, for example, if a goods from North America traveling all the way to China, and we are telling that we have a free trade zone in China, we are not doing anything, but we wanted to just keep it there. And then we consolidate a couple of containers together and we are bringing it into India. Can you allow the benefit? Probably the decisions have come out and the rules of origin very clearly says, no, it is not permitted. So that means what broker needs to understand when you read the direct consignment note, what is direct consignment? What permission available for an importer to avail? What was the intention behind the legislator to word the word? When I say transshipment, when I say it's a landlocked country where I cannot move the goods directly on a ship, I have to keep it in a transshipment point and then I need to take it. The spirit behind the wording is transshipment because of landlocked location, landlocked country. Now, if you take this for your commercial exploitation to another country, the department will look into it saying that, okay, is the same item being manufactured in that country? Is there a possibility that that country can unload this goods and put another substandard goods into the container and send it back? So, not to give room for all those kind of speculations, they will say they will deny the benefit. So, this is direct consignment. This is how critical things needs to be seen from. There is no standard rule. I told you 5 mega regional agreements that we have. Every agreement will have this kind of rules dictated. What is RVC? What is cumulative? What is direct? What is retro? So these things you need to read it. If you understand these concepts, then you will have a comfortable position to look into Form I, look into your importer's eye and customs officer's eye, and you can have counter questions. Okay. Remember, we have not reached Carotar. We are in 2019. Okay. In this regime, I'm talking to you. So in 2019-20s, our work was very simple. All we need to get this thing. That is when the government first started getting the heat. Many people started manipulating the signature. The first issue came out saying that the officers got transferred. A new officer posted the rules of origin, and the old officer signatures are being still used. Obviously, we found out, sent out notice. That is when the first suspicion started coming in. How can the trade misuse the trust which I have entrusted on the rules of origin authority? So when we wrote back and we asked, is this signed by you? They will say, no, this officer is already transferred. This is a bogus rules of origin. Now, if this is how rules of origin, the first suspicion started coming in, how do you think customs will handle this? Because customs wants to give the benefit to the genuine COO. That's all. When there is a genuinity is being questioned, that is when I have to bring in certain laws. Okay. So how do we understand the genuinity? If you read the rest one document released by department, this is also not my story. Okay, I can even show you the document. It is known as Carotar brochure. I'm sure everybody would have seen it in 2020. In that brochure itself, the government has declared one word, Areca nut. Have you ever seen this word Areca nut? ARECA, Areca nut, right? Areca nut. So in 2019, Mr. Sudeep has asked, why this Carotar? How this came out? If you see, in 2019, there was a verification done. If you ever have a time, please go to Google and download Carotar brochure. It's just about some 10-15 pages, a PDF file. Okay, you will get it. In which, if you see the paragraph 5, there was one example given. So it is not my story. Okay, real story. DRI unearthed a large scale of fraud. Areca nut. Remember, if your importer is asking why this nuisance in India called Carotar, or if you yourself asking a question to you, why this nuisance, the reason behind it is 5.2 of that the story was narrated. And to cut short the story in a simple way is, this particular item brought into India from an ex-country. But all of us know, including India, that this country's capability, I'm using some hypothetical quantification for you to understand. This particular country can only produce, let's say, 1,000 metric tons of Areca nut. But DRI found out 5,000 metric tons of Areca nut comes into this country through this country. And everyone has availed the free trade benefit. Now you tell me, you are the people, those who are attending the call, you only filed the bill of entry of Areca nut, stating that the rules of origin is of this country. Because you cannot do anything. You got a certificate of origin which confirms that the goods are from this origin. You file the bill of entry. But when you take the total quantification, I found out that it is impossible for this country to produce even in the next 50 years 5,000 metric ton. How did this happen? When they did their own homework, they found out it was all smuggled from ABC countries into this country and routed into India. Now, DRI being DRI, whom they will go after? They'll go after the importer, they'll go after the custom broker, give me proof, give me proof, give me proof. They went on and finally they found out there is no fault in custom broker. It was purposefully done by some XYZ syndicate. Now, can DRI go and question another country prime minister? There is no sovereign, it's a sovereign head of the state, right? So you cannot question. So what you can do, you can write back to our sovereign state head and say, this is happening. So the ministry took this very seriously. While they were watching this, something happened which all of you are aware. If you are there in Bombay or at many metro cities, you would have heard a shop called Big Bazaar. This company started selling amazing ready-made garment at a throwaway price. They said, bring all your old clothes, we will wait, and if it is 2 kg, you take 2 kgs worth of new clothes. To that extent, they started advertising, and Big Bazaar has become a very famous brand, When DRI started looking into it, they brought goods from Dubai, Singapore, moved into a landlocked country. From there, they exploited SAFTA and brought through Petropol, it came into India. Mr. Maheshwari, who's a CFO of the company, of Kishore Bayani's company, arrested. Public news. I'm boldly saying, you can verify in the newspaper. And he was put behind the trouble of investigation, and they recovered X amount of crores from that company. Probably from there onwards, since 2019, you would not have seen Big Bazaar flourishing with ready-made garments. Today, the company itself is in a different situation. Now, what this helps our government to think, now I have the authority, but I cannot exercise my authority beyond this jurisdiction. So, but then what I can do, I have to do something to protect my country. How do I do? Because see, my whole idea is to protect revenue. So then I said, see, if I tell what you need to do, you will question me. You will say that you don't have any jurisdiction. How can you direct me? So no problem. I will create own law of mine. So we 110 Finance Act, I still remember that very clearly, Chapter 5AA in our Customs Tariff Act, Section 28DA has been introduced. This is the first time, maybe since we are seeing in many countries, every country is very particular about one thing, that they don't want another country to cheat them. To that extent, they are putting a mechanism to filter. But no country has kept harsh procedures like Carotar. This is a very, very big part. Questions are there still when we move into the regime of trade facilitation agreement, when we move into the ease of doing business, when we try to eliminate process and procedures. How then we need to undergo this Carotar? Is it not a pain point for me? Is it not a burden for the department as well as for the trade? Yes, it is, but the financial repercussions are running in few crores. So I have no other choice but to draft and bring this. Okay. Now, the first and foremost thing, when you see the wordings in the section 28DA, I said, if you ever have an opportunity to read this section, it will give you an interesting perspective, interesting word, which will tell you one word I'm asking you to remember, sufficient. One word I'm asking you to remember called sufficient. It says, if an importer, if the officer having a reasonable doubt, and he can, if he has a doubt on what? Okay, first, before going into sufficient, let's analyze. If an officer has a doubt on what? Few minutes back, I said genuineness of COO. What is genuineness of COO? Deficiency in the format. The certificate of origin, there is a normal format and there is a prescribed format under the rules of origin. If there is a deficiency in the format, I can doubt the COO. Point number one. Number two, mismatch in signature. Because there is a process which I established. When you sign in your check leaf, the bank automatically verifies your signature. If it is not matching, they're rejecting it, right? In your checkbook. Exactly. Every country will share that information. I will have it, then I'll verify. If it is not there, then I will reject it. Okay, if there is a doubt on the signature. Mismatch in the seal. Whatever specimen seal which is given to me by that country, and if there is a small mismatch in the seal, then I will consider that as doubt. The genuinity will be questioned. This is point number one. Point number two. After I suspect the genuinity, I go into the accuracy of the information what you give. What is accuracy of information? Goods which are grown in my country, but if I see it is not grown in your country, like what I said, Arcanet. Goods which I say that it is produced in my country, but it is not produced. Goods which I say it is manufactured in my country, but it is not manufactured in that particular country. Then I consider that as missing information or accuracy of information is not right. Then we go to the next step, value addition. You say this is the value addition, but the value addition criteria is not met. Then we go to the next step, change in CTH. Then we go to the next step, change in PSR, product specific requirement. If these criteria are not met, or if you do not have information about this as an importer, before 2019, your position was different. Now, my reason for 28DA is very clearly on these category, which I spelt out while ago. If there is any doubt for me, then me being the proper officer, if I do not have sufficient information from you within 10 days, then I can invoke a step. Now here I wanted your attention. Why do I use the word sufficient information? Okay, because when in law, when they draft very, very carefully, because they take into account of all the previous litigations which was prevailing in the country, and they try to see that nobody plays any tricky things. For example, the Canon Limited, the proper officer, how the word the pulled out the entire power even till date from the officers. So they're very, very careful in looking into the words, and we also need to be very thorough of it. If an importer asks you a question saying that, why are you asking me so much information? If you are not able to clear the shipment, tell me, I will go to somebody else. No, you should never allow that to happen. So what the wording was made there is a procedure of claiming preferential rate of duty, verification by the proper officer, and circumstances for rejection of claim. Full stop. The provision casts certain obligation on importers to possess sufficient information. Now, what I explained to you, remember, you are assessing the bill of entry, you are the customs officer. When you assess the bill of entry, in other words, when you import or when you file, both are at the same position. You need to have sufficient information regarding the origin criteria as per notified rules and show reasonable care before claiming the benefit. This is the requirement from the Act, which means every customs broker and every importer supposed to add one step in between filing the bill of entry, a new step in your SOP, in your flow chart. If you already submitted your AU application, you need to amend it by saying that importers possessing sufficient information. Okay. Now, before I go into the process, I would like to tell you the tricky thing behind the word sufficient. This will also help you to explain to your importer. Suppose I always use this example. You have, all of you must be 30, 40 years of experience, and some of you are 10 years of experience. This millennium kids may not be understanding. In those days, in our days, when you pass out from your school or from your college, from your higher secondary studies, we say that I passed in first class. Have you heard? Nowadays, you don't hear this. Okay, in those days, those people in the olden days, definitely they would have received some chocolates. My son passed in first class. What is first class denotes? 60%. If you cross 60%, you have secured first class. You then move to a next level of distinction. There is no such classification called centum, okay, because centum is very rare. So you always look for somebody who's passed in, my son passed in first class, distinction, gold medalist. Now today, even in Mumbai, even in other parts of the country, St. Stephen College in Delhi says 99.97, that is 99.97, 99.98, there is a conflict. Imagine where the world were and where we went ahead. Now you tell me, my son have sufficient marks. Now what is sufficient mark? That is not defined. You may say first class is sufficient. You may say distinction is sufficient. But I can also say, no. 99.9 is only sufficient. Possible? Yes, possible. Such interpretation possible. That is why this word called sufficient information. You cannot play with the officers. So they carefully chosen that word. Now you go back and you read and your head will spin. My goodness, how did they brought this? Learning. They learned hardly from the past mistakes, worded very carefully. And which means I, as an officer, has the entire authority to verify, because there is no such one position which I can take saying that, okay, if you meet 1, 2, 3, 4, I will accept that. Perfect. You are not to be checked. It is all my discretion. See, that is how they gained the power and act. This is an irony, but you and me cannot deny that. Now, you all need to know we have constitution, we have list entry, and we have act. Now, under act, we have delegated legislations, which is creating the rules. And then under the rules, you have guidance, everything coming in. Now, when you see the rules and we go and fight, it is like you breaking your head on the wall. Because tomorrow the courts will come and use this word, and the officers will take rescue using this. That is why I'm giving impetus for you to read this word, sufficient information regarding the origin criteria as per the notified rules. Show reasonable care before claiming, which means when the act says show reasonable care, are we showing reasonable care, or we are also considering Carotar filing also 10+1 is a question that each and everyone needs to ask. Okay, so this is one basic understanding on the act. Now, up to 2020, you all had one case law. called New Bombay Exports. All of you are very familiar, right? What it says, if the importer produces a valid COO, the issuing authority of the originating country to claim the benefit. The COO obtained from the exporter, that is from the issuing authority of the country of origin, the court says very clearly held, the authorities cannot question the originating criteria since the COO was a conclusive evidence of origin being issued by the government designated authority in the originating country. Now, 2009, 20 September onwards, this case law has no relevance at all. And there are no major case laws have come out from this as well. Nobody went in to a nobody went and created any landmark judgment. Okay, so which means New Bombay Exports in tribunal, that to a tribunal Chennai case law have no sanctity currently that we can use. That lost its significance post Carotar. So which means now we are in the Carotar regime. Now we go to the next phase of Carotar. That is where we were all eagerly waiting for it. Okay. Now the first thing is what Dushant and the honorable secretaries have said. What as a broker, what is my responsibility? Every broker needs to know one thing for sure, that you already have the responsibility under section 46. Nobody can deny that. Okay, so we'll come to that and we will read that little later when we see the do's and don'ts. As per rule 3, importers are required to declare the bill of entry. So which means rule 3 is the fundamental basic requirement which says whether issued by a third country and whether there is a direct shipment. So rule 3 says very clearly, you can note it down one by one. Number, date of issuance, originating criteria, whether accumulation is applied or not, whether issued by a third country, and whether there is a direct shipment. Now, your first basic LKG words is that every broker needs to be mastering on these words. Now, accumulation we have seen. We have seen what is direct shipment. We have seen also what is originating. What we have not seen is third country exports. This is where a lot of questions are coming in. Let me just, I think someone's mic is unmuted. Just mute your mic. It will be helpful. All right. Let me just help you to understand how this third country exports needs to be seen. Please see my screen. I'm putting a screen here in which see serial number 1. We are all there in India. See my cursor, how it is moving. We are in India. I am placing an order in Germany. Now, Germany is dispatching the goods to his supplier in Malaysia. Dispatch to Malaysia. That is for India. It has gone to Malaysia. Now, payment, Indian party has already made the payment directly to Germany. So which means I place an order and I make a payment to Germany. That means 1 and 3 is fulfilled. Germany's response is they are sending the payment to Malaysia and they are also they are telling you dispatch the goods to India. Now Malaysia are directly sending the goods to India, supplying the goods to India. All right. Now my question is third country. Indian importer can claim tariff preference under India ASEAN FTA or Malaysia SICA. Please type your answer in the chat box. Now, if this is how a scenario, let me just explain. India is placing an order in Germany, which is in European Union, and Germany receives the payment, and Germany gives the payment to Malaysia. Germany tells Malaysia, please supply this to India. Okay, this is the 3 country involved. Now, the question is, you as a broker, which preferential trade agreement you will be able to claim? Please type your answers in the chat box. Only one person said ASEAN. Rest everybody are saying Malaysia. Malaysia. Very good. All right. So let's go by it. Let me just show you the answer. See my screen. Yes. Indian importer can claim preference under either ASEAN and Malaysia. Why? Why do we say that? Because there is a specific provision which is there, says third country or third party invoicing under both the framework. That is to be seen. So in order, I would have really happy if anybody would have said, I cannot comment unless I see the provisions there in the framework. That means you are directly doing the right process. If your importer is asking the same question, I am placing an order to Germany, Germany is supplying to Malaysia, Malaysia is sending it to me, which I need to claim. You cannot simply say both. You cannot simply say either or. You should say, give me some time. Let me just read this. So when you read this article 22, that says operational certification procedures for the rules of origin very clearly says, and point number 21 on this very clearly says, this is possible and it is notified. So when you have such authentic information in your hand, you can decide on third party invoicing. Okay, you got some idea. Now, I'll give you another case study. This is known as a back-to-back COO. Now here, follow me closely. Malaysia is supplying the goods to Singapore. Malaysia is supplying the goods to Singapore. So Singapore became an importer. Now Singapore receives the goods, absolutely no value addition, selling the goods to India. Whether importer in India can claim ASEAN benefit is the question. Okay, let's see how the chat box are alarming. Have you understood the question? Okay, now let's see the answers. All right. One person says no. Oh, two say no. Some say yes. Okay. Can you just put why do you say yes and why do you say no? Take 5 seconds. Why do you say yes and why do you say yes? The back-to-back is ticked on the certificate. Singapore is a participating country. He's asking a question to me, Rajesh. Okay. If COO is issued in Malaysia, then FTA can be claimed. It is a direct, not from Malaysia. RCV. All right. So we are getting a lot of, suppose if I'm an importer, if I'm sending an RFQ to 10 people, I'm getting 10 different response. One says depends on the manufacturing goods, manufacturing. Okay. So I'm confused now. Okay. 10 different customers giving 10 different things. What one answer could be? So Shankar Narayanan. Very good. Both are ASEAN countries. Very, very well said. Okay. Now let me just show you the answer. Yes, it is possible. I told you in the previous example itself, I would be very happy if you could say, wait, let me just read the provisions and come back. Or if you would have copied that provision, that would have been great. Under the provision of Article 11, operational certificate procedures, customs the notification very clearly says back-to-back CO allowed. So which means it is possible. Very good. So this is how you should try to answer. So when there is a situation when it comes under Carotar, when they are asked to tell you very clearly, how do you understand this? Your answer should be not very generic. It has to be very clearly, you need to see rule 3. Now, the COO is covered each item with a preferential rate of duty. Then if you are able to say that, yes, tick, 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 if all your items are ticked, then you need to go to the next step, that is rule 4A. What does rule 4A says? Because there is a demand, importer must possess sufficient information, right? Importer must possess. Now, you are acting on behalf of importer. So Carotar says that the information as indicated in Form I. So now what is Form I? The Form I contains basically whatever in SUV time, whatever questions I need to ask, I had asked you in the questionnaire. So Form I is very, very important. And especially the section 3 of the Form I should be possessed by importer before importing the goods. Now, how many customs broker are having this control? Form I section 3, is it satisfying you? Because you are the assessing officer. You have all rights to go back and ask questions to your importer, because 4A definitely needs to be shown to your importer, and you need to tell them, boss, unless you give me this information, I will not proceed further. Of course, one side there is a threat of duty interest or probably demurrage, detention. All that is fine. Whether it is advanced or you're doing it lively, that is different. But the point is, this process should not get deviated. Now, there might be some instance where the supplier will refuse to give because of confidentiality, but the procedure needs to be established that you writing to the importer, citing the provision very clearly, unless you give this, we will not file the bill of entry. Now you are pushing the court, the ball to the importer's court. Now explain to the importer also if he is not clear what he need to ask from your party. Then we go to rule 5.2, very important. Accuracy is anyway 4C, you have done it. Now providing information to customs. Now, when you say that the importer is supposed to possess this documents or information, when the proper officer is suspecting the initial suspicions, which I had listed out 9, you are expected to produce this within how many days? 10 days. So now, unless if this is not produced, there is a lacuna in our part. So that is where the law, the verification process kicked in. Of course, verification process, there are instructions 18 and 19, which we will see how who needs to do it, when they need to do. All of you can admit one thing. Instructions have come in. Squarely, everybody missed it. Okay. I'll also prove that, how that had happened and how the rectification process. We will just move this a little bit and then we'll get into the verification side as well. The law says the verification has to be launched by the officer when you have the doubt on the genuinity and authenticity, along with rule 5.4, read with rule 6.1. Okay, so that is not an issue. So what is rule 6.1? What is 6.1A? 6.1B, 6.1C, 6.1A and C1 route, 6.1B is another route. This is known to all of you. Okay. So now how then this compulsory verification initiated by the department? And this is the important area that we have come in. How do you defend it? If the importer does not possess this information, what right I have as an officer? Because section 17.2 also to be seen. Because there, without also the officer can ask you to produce the information without Carotar. Now he is added with 28 DA. So which means the officer is having now 2 powers. One is 17.2 power, another one is 28 DA power. And he says, if you don't give me this information, if you do not have this information when I'm asking, then obviously I will have to initiate verification. So verification of preferential certificate of origin under Carotar rules. There is a rule which has come out, right? All of you must have seen that rule, right? Now this rule was not effective. Every officer took one shelter, irrespective of signature mismatch, irrespective of even exchange rate. They went beyond their jurisdiction. Even there is a exchange rate difference, even there is a any deficiency, they used only one method of rejecting the POO, asking you to clear the shipment under PD or pay the duty. So what happens over the last 2 years, whatever instructions given by the department squarely overlooked. For example, if I may ask you to open your instruction on this one front, that instruction number 18, let's take 18, for example, okay? Or even instruction number, both you can have. Maybe before 18, we can go to 19. I'll tell you how that works. Okay, instruction number 19. If you see here, the very precise reason, the subject itself says, maintaining consistency with the provision relevant to the rules of origin. And they wanted a uniformity to be adopted. That is 2018 instructions uniformly to be applied. How do you avoid this overlapping powers? We have 28 DA. Under 28 DA, we have Carotar rules. Keep it in your left-hand side. An important word every broker needs to understand is, many of you have faced this conflict. When the conflict between the provisions of the rules and the provisions of the rules of origin. What do I mean? The Carotar rule says This is how information. But my rules of origin says the verification process should be done like this. But our artificially created rule says this is how it has to be, which means there should be one rule will prevail over another. So the one rule is the rule of origin shall prevail over rules of origin, which means what I'm trying to say is that the original rules of origin between these two countries, what was formulated under the non-tariff notification, that rule will prevail over the rule which talks about the provisions under Carotar, where we find this rule 8.3 very clearly says. So this is another tool which was squarely missed by both the sides. So obviously you need to, why? Because the same mistake which I had pointed out in the beginning, none of us have studied what actually the rules of origin wants under the particular FTA. We straight away went into the verification process and he said that bank guarantee section 18. Squarely nothing else is sent to DIC. DIC will verify for what it should be sent, for what it should be reprimanded, for what it should be approved. So the 61A, 61C, 61B not understood. We took this rule and we started only talking on this rule. Our letters, our discussions with the officer stayed only with 18, public notice 18, instruction 18 and instruction 19. So now, if you understand 8.2, when rules of origin prevails, you may touch your heart and tell me how many times you went back to the nodal officer and you said, this conflict can be dealt like that. When you have a conflict, this rules of origin doesn't demand this. So your created Carotar rules cannot prevail over the rules of origin. So we cannot go into a provisional assessment. Have we done that? So this is one good point which you need to ask for it. Recently, when we were talking about the provisional assessment, when number of provisional assessment not finalized, some of you got finalized, verification effectively happened. Many of you were happy. But when number of provisional assessment not finalized, I think your association took this matter very seriously to some higher levels. I have read one circular, one standing order in the month of January, long back. So, no, recently Mr. Pandey sir office has issued a circular, standing order. That standing order also very clearly tells how verification has to be expedited, how each officers needs to send documents, why these documents have not been sent. They have highlighted the deficiency. All COOs have been sent, legible copies are not present, how that going forward the TSK needs to handle it. So we will see some of those observations which was made by these officers. So what they said, Rule 6 of Carotar requires you to conduct a verification, no doubt about it. For what you can do verification? Number one, illegible scanned documents. These are the common grounds on which the verification could not get advanced and it returned back. Number one, the documents what was uploaded in e-Sanchit or whatever the documents for verification sent was not legible. First point. Number two, they are asking lack of covering letter indicating the nature of request or the jurisdictional approval. This is what Mr. Dushyant Malani has said. Everybody cannot left and right invoke this provision. It has to be when I am ordered to do this, I need to be told very specifically by the jurisdictional commissioner what I need to verify. This instruction was not there. So which means it is internally the department failed to do that. The second one, the third, sending the bulk COO instead of if there are one same ship are coming, all 50 shipments, you don't need to send all the 50. You should take one representative sample. This is very clearly written in 38 of 2020. So these are the three causes in which verification could not have been completed. That was the response which they got it. Okay. So now, then the second one, issues with verification request. They gave an example, non-availability of issuing authority name, even if not mandated by the trade agreement. Now here, trade, I pointed out one thing follow rule 83. If you fail to read trade agreement, the rules of origin, if the rules of origin says, if signature, these things are not required. If your customs officer's mindset is recorded in such a way that even though the rules of origin doesn't demand it, which means the rules of origin say issuing authority name need not to be there, but he has a mindset saying that issuing authority name is not there, so I'm rejecting it. This goes for it. So the DIC says, the board says that for this reason, we sent it back because issues, the second one, non-availability of specimen seal and signature despite prior communication by board. So under these pretexts, they could not process this kind of applications. These are the reasons which were given by them. Okay. So 61B says 10 days may this needs to happen, which never we have seen. So going forward, what this SO says that you have to send it to FTARO CBIC gov.in. They need to follow a discipline of not using physical courier, but email communication to be adopted. So this kind of a directives were given, and they need to do this verification in the procedures followed prescribed in the format. So what format was appended in the instruction that needs to be followed. If you also need to have the covering letter and the valid grounds also need to be mentioned over there. So the officer who initiates the inquiry, whatever the inquiry, they need to make sure that the RMS system is also updated with this 45 of 2020 advisories to prevent any unnecessary queries. Then if there are any further delay happens, the zonal officers needs to be updated and they given their email ID. So our whole summation on this verification is follow the SO which was issued by Navasheva. This is the only one station in the country who at least admitted there is a lacuna from our side, and this is how we will be overcoming, and how documents to be given to TSK, how documents to be handled has been prescribed over there. So now the second one is identical goods. 7.1 rule 7.1 says that once it is determined that originated goods produced by a particular exporter doesn't meet the criteria, all identical goods from the same suppliers can be rejected. Now, here the question is, officers are citing 7.1. They're saying, if this one I have sent it for verification, the remaining things need not to be sent for verification. They are saying, because of 7.1, we are opting for provisional clearance. So we cannot give the benefit. If you want, you take the goods on payment of duty. Otherwise, you go for provisional assessment. So this is how they are citing the principles. Okay. So what are the penal actions? The same action, whatever the Customs Act, because it is the rules are made under 28DA. So whatever the penal provisions which is applicable even for section 17 violation, same will apply. So which all of us have understood. Now the BG issue, which was very, very pertinent. Now we will have to wait and see how the association, how the government is taking the clearances. Now the second phase on the clearance side, many people have asked in the question, can we do protest clearance? Can we do protest clearance? All of us are very familiar with protest clearance. Rule 5.4 says, if you fail to produce this information, because of this, if the officer is concluding. Now, if the officer is unable to conclude, and if he is asking you to verify, till the time you cannot do protest clearance. But because, the assessment is not concluded. But protest clearance, many people are the bank duty, we will file it under protest. Then your only way go is to file an appeal further and move forward. Okay. So the other key thing, how many years that you need to file the key features, everything that you have. Form 1, where, okay, public notice. Okay. So now the important thing for customs broker. Every customs broker needs to have this one important thing of section 46. How section 46 have been worded. 46.4a has been inserted. That says, importer who presents a bill of entry shall ensure the following. Number one, accuracy. Two, authenticity and validity of any document supporting it, compliance restriction and prohibition. Now, which means obviously this responsibility from 2018 comes on us while filing the bill of entry. So why customs brokers are getting implicated? How do we prevent ourselves from this? This is a peculiar question that we have. Now, suppose if you have an email communication or a checklist approval, sir, I don't know, they approved it, so I filed it. Can you get yourself request from this? The answer is no. Never take a shelter saying that I got an email from them, so I am safe. There are few cases which we have seen. That cases very clearly says the customs brokers have their approvals, they have all the things, but still the department is implicating them. So my recommendation to you is, if your first step of checklist process, when you file the bill of entry, if it is very strong, that is a big evidence for you to stop the clearance or to delay the clearance. The second step is when you file the bill of entry during the query time, there are some conscious decision that you need to take, not by completely agreeing to what the officer says, the suggestions which I have given, whether to sort provisional assessment, whether to go back and escalate to the nodal officer. BG and provisional is not the final thing according to the rules. That is why I've pointed out rule 8.3, because this rules will never prevail over the rules of origin. So if I do not have an understanding on the rules of origin, whatever they say, it's Bible. If I have an understanding on the rules of origin, verify, then you come back and you counter it with your reply submission. The third one, if you have already filed a PD clearance and if it is unduly delayed, there are three methods in which that you can handle this. Number one, you can go to the court and file a writ petition and you can legitimately ask, which means you should tell your importer about it. Number two, you can file a CP-gram grievance through which within 2 days, there are responses are coming in. CP-gram grievances cell is being copied to PMO office. So your importer needs to say that it crossed beyond 45 days. Till now, there is no remedial. If there is no remedy, then we are not bound to hold this bill of entry under previous provisional assessment. And a few stations have invoked CP-gram and they shared the feedback to me. It is very effectively happening and officers are responding to it. And this is how these are the mechanism which is available to you. And the third one is to write to the nodal officer and follow up with an RTI. These things which we don't do it, we don't write, we don't send it. This kind of a RTI, we don't invoke it. So the officer in every custom stations are there to give a time-bound answer to you and use this method on the third part of it. And then we move to the don'ts. Avoid importing from any traders that they do not have any proper information, because currently there are a lot of commodity exports and coming into India. The traders and the merchants have no good background. If you are not able to fulfill the KYC or if they are not able to provide correct information, avoid doing business with them. That is the safest area. Don't expect your supplier that they will give all the information, confidential informations. There are limitations which I've already explained to you. So don't expect even the calculation of RVC, the supplier do not want to disclose that kind of a profit ratios, what they are doing it. So ultimately, it is a balance that we need to strike. I need all information, you will not get. I need reasonable information, you may get. So it is all how well that you sensitize your importer by way of an awareness session or by way of writing to them very clearly saying that if you want a smooth sail, make sure that these checklists are ticked. If you fail to do that, then probably we will end up and we will not be held liable. So this kind of an arrangement, you should have it in the contractual obligation itself very clearly. Ultimately, you should not forget that the responsibility is on the importer and you are also bound under section 46. So equally, you need to make sure that the documents, what you're submitting is, you cannot simply say importers have accepted it, so I'm just signing it. You also put yourself into the shoes When you will be able to ask question only when you master the concepts, only when you understand the particular agreement in detail, you will be able to ask questions back to the importer. You will be able to ask and face the customs officers. Don't think that only the rules what was created under Carotar is what the guiding factor. That is an impediment, but to overcome the impediment, that we need to have the sufficient knowledge and the information, which will also equally help. As of today, I inquired about Carotar related issues, one side from the association. I also personally spoke to many people. Compared to the olden days, issues are getting settled. Compared to olden days, issues are getting settled. However, peculiar stations, peculiar offices, peculiar products are being questioned. So it is all in our hands as to how well that we understand the concept, how well that we able to feed your importer with proper information, and how well that you are able to handle the customs officers by reading these instructions, circulars, standing orders, and handling the Carotar issues. So by which I told you, this is not the end. Carotar will stay here because recently in UAE government also they asked how we can handle Carotar, whether Carotar can be exempted. No, Carotar will stay because this will never be lifted. But we need to get accustomed to handling this Carotar because it is globally aligned and our government is also aligned with the WTO frameworks. And the only thing what is missing link is study the framework and the origin criteria, which is defined for case to case, and master to it. That will help you to overcome or argue. There is no standard argument. FTAs, this is how it has to be done. No, each agreement has certain peculiarity. Use those concepts and overcome the hurdles. So I think by 6 o'clock we should stop here. You should take up this further and read it and represent if you have any open points through the association in the coming days. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mr. Sudeep.
Chairman, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Joshua, sir. It was quite very insightful, rather, what you conveyed, and most important aspect which you conveyed, that at the time of filing the document, during process of assessment, if there are queries, what are the issues pertaining to and the provisions of law available. And post clearance also, it's an important aspect which you touch based on. For our members, to take this request ahead to you to just give a one pages, one kind of a document, points which can help to fortify our members, take the right information from the importers while giving the submitting the bill of entry during the process of clearance and post clearance. That would be wonderful. And
Sure, sir.
first, go across to any of the office bearers on board of advisors who are here, if they want to ask some question, and then we go on to the audience. Yeah, IPC Shankar bhai, anything from your side?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Joshua. As usual, you have been wonderful speaker and very down to earth, where the understanding level of a custom broker is required. Otherwise, your understanding is on the higher level. But when it comes to custom brokers, you come at that level and explain as to what are the responsibilities and understanding both the aspects from the user side and from the implementation side also. And here we can see the major responsibility or the challenges are faced when it comes to third country exports, where on one part the government is looking for the trade surpluses and trade deficits, where the remittance is the base which is caught for that purpose, whereas the supply is being done from the third country. So that criteria, it becomes difficult for government also and for the trade also to understand how to go about it. But you have very well explained as to what are the major things which has to be taken into consideration, whether it is in the ambit of the countries signatories to the TFA, and when it goes beyond the ambit of the TFA. So it is well understood also, and also the remedies which is to be considered prior, during the clearance and after the clearance. And surely, as informed by our chairman, we will look forward for that paper, which will help our members at large to understand and implement in right way. And major things, what you said is right. Whenever we have some queries or query replies to be given, it is very generic, which gives them more scope for the customs to put more queries and then reject and then go for provisional. Rather, if you are specific with the study, even if you copy paste those rules and regulation in reply, they understand, yes, you are aware of the rules of regulations, origin rules, which has to be applied, which is not to be applied, and they don't get into the detailing of it, and then they process with the regular course of bill of entry. That is how we should go about it. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot once again. Thanks to the members also who have attended this session, because it encourages even FFFAI office bearers and the high level to organize such sessions for members when the interest is coming from the trade. So once again, I would like to thank all board of advisors, the office bearers, the members of the association, and at large, Mr. Joshua, who has always been in the collaborative approach of FFFAI to showcase and give the insight on the every topic of which is required for the trade. Thank you.
Rama sir?
I think Shankar has taken a lead and said everything what I wanted to say. Thank you so much, Joshua sir, for your simplicity in language for people to understand. That's honestly, so far I have not taken any notes. Probably for Carotar, I have filled 3 pages. So I think you have given sufficient information to others also, and it is really important that to, especially on the bank guarantees, how the bank guarantees can be, issues can be mitigated is one eye opener for certain. Thank you so much. So kind of you.
Any questions? Maybe I think we can.
there
We
are
have some
three
questions from the
questions,
attendees' hands raised. If there is something to require,
there are
Chairman
3
sir.
Question,
questions
sir, you
in the
can
Q&A
just
box.
take few answers which you can give from the
Question
Q&A
answers.
chat box which are there.
No,
Mr. Dhiren Chaya. Mr. Joshua, you can read and just give the answers. If you
Take Dhirenji on the panel and get him there. Sagar?
Yes, sir, I'm taking him, sir.
Yeah, but the question is clear. I think so, Mr. Joshua can
Yeah,
just
I think
directly
so.
answer.
Yeah, question is very clear.
A bonded document when at the time of ex-bonding, whether CO will be honored or not. That's
No, but COO not issued on time, but issued later, and whether the bonded goods can be cleared under COO. That is the question.
So, before filing of the ex-bond bill of entry, if this is issued, people are doing that. In fact, quite a lot of importers bond their consignment by assessing on merit, keep it in bond, and then they do the ex-bond after the certificate is issued.
Retrospectively issued.
Yeah, retrospective.
Retrospective, right?
So should I take him on? Dhiren Chaya?
Yeah, go ahead.
Dhiren bhai, you can speak now.
Dhiren sir, kindly unmute and speak.
Anyway,
Hello,
there's a,
Yeah.
I'm audible now, sir.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening to everybody. Thank you, sir. It was a nice webinar, giving a lot of knowledge. Sir, my question was that it was very clear that my importer has filed the into-bond bill of entry. At that time, the CO was not received. Then he warehoused the cargo, but at the time of ex-bonding, he produced the CO. However, the cargo has been sold to the third party. Will he be able to get all this benefit? Can he avail all benefits?
It's so it's sale from bond.
So who needs
Yeah, under section 59(3).
to answer this?
Yeah, Joshua sir.
I think Joshua sir's
okay.
screen is frozen actually.
Yeah, he's on. He's on now.
All right. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
sir.
All right. Sir, here the gentleman is asking a question that when I imported the goods, I bonded the goods into my warehouse. Okay, very good. So he is saying that he will be selling the goods to somebody. Importer will sell the goods to somebody. Is my understanding correct? I couldn't see the
Correct.
question where you are
Yes,
posting,
yes,
but I'm
sir.
listening
Yes,
to you.
sir.
The warehoused goods will be sold to somebody. Okay. And that somebody will have a certificate of origin and they will be able to clear the question. That is what your question is, right?
Hmm.
No. The
Only the
original
original importer is having the certificate origin in his name only.
Correct. Okay.
After warehousing the cargo, he is
Hmm.
transferring the cargo under section 59 to the buyers, means local selling. So local buyer will get the benefit on this.
No, local selling means is it an inbound sale is happening?
Yes, inbound to export.
It's a change of title, under change of title.
Title is getting changed from the
Yes.
bond to a non-bond DTA. Okay. Okay. And whether that benefit can be availed by them. That's the question.
Yeah, that is the question.
By the DTA was no brainer. Definitely no.
Because that is
Because-
issued to a specific importer.
No,
But sir,
definitely no.
these benefits is given to the goods only, no? If I am not mistaken.
No.
Sir, probably I think you should study the Carotar principles and the rules of origin very clearly. Supplier is giving an originated goods to an importer, and that importer is possessing the certificate of origin. The certificate of origin issued to A. Now A is imported. A can clear the goods, but if an A is selling to the DTA market, the DTA who's going to clear? I bonded it under 59. The goods have been bonded. I am permitted to keep the goods under bond. Now the one you're using a word. If I allowed to be filing a debonding bill of entry, I will claim that. There is no brainer. But you are saying I'm transferring the title. When you transfer the title, which means a third party who has no relevance to the COO importer name, finished. Your certificate of origin cannot be linked with them. You cannot claim it. It's a simple understanding. No? So B cannot claim an A certificate of origin. So in simple terms, for example, how you need to understand Dhiren. If your name is Dhiren Chaya, the certificate of origin is issued to only Dhiren. So Dhiren only can get it. Otherwise, you need to go back and get an amendment to get your name incorporated. The same way, you are now using a different third party to get a thing. That doesn't work in that way. It completely defeats the principles. It is not only for the goods, it is also for the importer. That is why the certificate of origin is given. Unless specifically if the rules of origin tells that it is permitted, but I have not come across any such rules of origin confirming this.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
There's one, Mr. Amit Raichandani. So should I bring him on? He has a question in the Q&A session, Q&A box.
Yeah. What is the question, sir? You can read.
In one of our case, we received goods under AIFTA.
Okay, ASEAN. Okay.
Goods were wholly obtained, but exporter has mentioned regional value content 100% plus CETH in origin criteria, which is not correct as per preparing COO guidelines in agreement. Does not affect duty implication or origin of goods. However, officers still did not allow the benefit and insisted to send COO to origin office for verification. I'm not sure.
Yeah, in the what he says is in the form I, it is mentioned as wholly obtained RVC, but the officer is objecting the goods because there is a difference in the CTH. That's what the thing, no? Maybe you should ask Amit to share the document, then we will come.
Him on, sir. Mr. Amit, are you there? Yes, he's connecting to audio.
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Amit.
Thank you, sir, for giving me a chance to ask my question.
You close one system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lost him, I think.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's
sir.
get that. Yeah. Next.
Is it mandatory to mention the third country supplier invoice number in any country of origin certificate?
Sir, the example which I gave, there is a lot of ongoing disputes which is also there. When you mention a third country, definitely when you say third country, we need before commenting that we need something within that region or outside region. What he meant as third country, that information he need to give. Then we can comment further. Within the ASEAN country or outside the ASEAN ambient.
Okay, let me see. So in the meantime, Mr. Tejas Bhosle, we are facing challenges in Korea origin goods. Notification is not attracting by ICE Gate last 4 to 5 days. That is totally out.
That's a system related.
That is system related. Mr. Parekh, if consignment is under high C sale, can buyer claim the CO benefit? Sir?
Hello, the question is for me, no? If the
Yes.
consignment is on high C sale, can the buyer can claim the same answer, the first question, no? The COO should be in the high C sale buyer's name.
Okay, Mr. Amit, you're in?
Listen to me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, in one of our case, we received a cargo from Vietnam. Now, the cargo was wholly obtained in Vietnam. So, as per the rules, the exporter should mention wholly obtained on the form, on the CEO, CEO. But by mistake or don't know for what reason, they had mentioned regional value content 100% plus CTSH. Now, actually, by mentioning this, it will not affect anything on the duty, and goods will always remain wholly obtained in Vietnam. But still, officer didn't allow us the benefit on the goods at last.
But what is the reason the officer is saying for that?
So, just wanted your advice on this. What should be done in
No,
such cases?
what is the reason the officer is saying, sir, for this?
So norms are actually saying that they should mention wholly obtained. The shipper exporter should get mentioned wholly obtained on the form A1. But by I don't know for what reason, it was by mistake or by oversight, they had mentioned regional value content 100%, which actually means that it is wholly obtained. So I just wanted to know what should we do in this case, sir?
You send me that COO and the form I. Let me just see it and comment back on that. Share with the association. They will share it with me. Then I will see the document and I'll comment on that.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
I guess you know our email IDs and everything. Mr. Thoi.
Yes, sir. I do have.
Yeah. Mr. Thoi.
Yeah, good evening, sir. So my question was, suppose, sir, I am having an import from Australia, and the third country invoice is issued from Singapore. So it is out. So it is under ECTA. So is it mandatory to mention the third country supplier's invoice number in this country of origin? Because in the certificate, it is the supplier, actual supplier, exporter, is his invoice number is mentioned.
Yeah, this kind of a questions are being asked if the third country exporter, what rate that they are purchasing. If it, that chain of documents, the officers are asking the chain of documents to prove what rate from which country it is asked for it. Though technically it is not mandatory, but still if an officer asks for it, then you should produce it.
Okay, so if the documents are produced, then officer is can release the allow
Yeah,
the.
basically to see the difference, because usually in third country invoice that there will be 50 rupees can be inflated to a higher rate, or a valuation can be deflated to a lower rate. So that they wanted to see what is the rationale behind it.
Agreed, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, if I'm allowed, can I ask one more question, please?
Yes, sir.
Quickly.
Yeah. So, sir, thing is that in many China APTA, we have seen that if it is spare parts consignment also, the it is mentioned as wholly obtained. The column 8 says A. So, is this correct?
See, we cannot definitely speak on many spare parts wholly obtained. If you tell me one part name, then we can connect that with, see, for example, if you say rice is wholly obtained from India, we can say that. But if you say some spare parts, so what spare part, what component, what it constitutes, many questions are coming. So if you definitely want an answer for it, you send me what is that spare part, name of the spare part, then we will be able to say, for example, if it is a nut, then we know, okay, this is only a metal which is created. If you say some other part, spare part means what? Then we will be able to tell whether it will be qualifying for wholly obtained. What is the concept of wholly obtained? Two things, right? One, it has to be produced in that country, or it has to be manufactured. These two are wholly obtained, which means produced means it is like a crops. It produced 0% error for anything else. 100% it is produced in the country, no doubt about it. The second one is manufactured. So manufactured we need to determine that spare part, what are the components, what are the ingredients, or what are the materials which is used to produce that spare part is originated from the country. So that we need to see the BOM, or we need to ask further questions from the supplier to determine that. So that is what the Form I will ask you to declare.
Okay. So, sir, it is like
So
that. If the manufacturing is done with a product which is wholly obtained at that same country, so it is okay.
Yeah, see, suppose if China is manufacturing, and if you are using which FTA, and if that FTA allows, do we have, first of all, an FTA supporting China? If there is a manufacturing, then we need to see into the parts, whether what is the classification for the parts, whether that parts has what is the value addition prescribed, and whether the value addition is met, then it will be deemed as a preferential rate of duty benefit. Now, when you confidently saying that this product is, forget about China, any country, if it is wholly obtained, obviously it should meet the criteria 100%, no doubt about it. Only thing, whether it is wholly obtained or not, that is the only thing which we need to see based on the product to product.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
One Mr. Manoj Bhambani, can we, whether CO can be defaced at ex-bonding stage?
I may not be knowing an answer for this. Maybe it's a procedural thing. Maybe somebody from your office bearers can respond to this, please.
Chairman, sir?
If debonding is done in simple terms by you, you bonded the goods, and if you are debonding it, then obviously you can do it. But what is the current procedure? Maybe somebody else can comment about it.
Okay, we'll come to that. Sir, there's this Manoj Bhambani. His question was whether CO can be defaced at ex-bonding stage. I mean, sir, we are doing that, no?
Yes, yes. Means you bond a consignment on merit and retrospective जो issue हो रहा है, if you submit at the time of ex bond, it can be defense at the time of ex bonding. But
Sir,
अगर bond bill of entry में if you are taking the benefit at the time of assessment, before out of check defacement will have to be done at the time of bonding only.
So there are two things you can have. For example, if any of your members wanted a question, for example, this gentleman has asked spare parts from China, or that first question, there is no direct one-line answer to it. There are a lot of other counter questions that we need to ask to get this. So these things, I think you should tell this member, we'll take these questions and we will communicate back to them by asking certain counter questions, and we will give the response to them. That is the ideal way of doing things, in my view. There is no straight cut one answer. Can you do this? For example, the last question, can we consider EFTA if there is a value difference in invoice and EFTA copy? 100% no. Even that's what I told you. Officers are waiting for opportunity even because of exchange rate. Technically, if you see, we won the case. Similar case I won the case in appeal, and the case was denied. But still, officers are doing this. Technically, if you see, you need to find out, ask a question, why there is a value difference. The value difference can come for what reason? Mainly on the exchange rate conversion. So if there is a Thai bucks to, if the local invoice is having a conversion rate, when you change it to an US dollar, there could be a fluctuation, because of which there is a value difference likely to happen. No other major reasons likely to be there. Definitely that is acceptable according to me, because you are able to connect very clearly saying that because of the exchange rate taken at the time of issuing the circular, Thai bahts into US dollar is this. At the time of file bill of entry, an officer needs to definitely understand. But what they are doing it's an error, and they're rejecting the case, or some other means in which that they're trying to handle that. So to answer your question, you need to tell me, Mr. Admin, what is the cost for this difference? And then that answer. That is how the FTA related queries are not simple, because I cannot say yes and no, yes and no. You have to give me more information to get a precise answer. That's all I'm trying to communicate.
So I don't think there are any
All
more
right.
other questions in the Q&A box.
Any further, I think we'll request members to please share their questions. We will have them sent to Mr. Dr. Joshua and have them replied also. So over to you, Sudhir.
And sir, we will have this video on our website, if I'm correct, sir. We can put this up in our website for members to see at a later stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So my only request to all participants is those who are FFFAI members, log on to our website. All these knowledge sessions we are having, all these videos are recorded on the website. So if you have missed certain part, if you could not understand certain aspects, you can go over and over and actually understand it. So that's number one. Number two, we are always there to take your questions, get a relevant and appropriate answer from the authorities who are here, and we will reply back to you. So please be proactive. The more proactive general members are, the more we are encouraged to take that one more step ahead, so that we give a better support to our members. And as Mr. Joshua has said today, that I think the best way is to actually empower ourselves by doing some reading. And only when we have that knowledge that is required to be possessed by a custom broker, then only I think we can deal with the authorities in a proper manner. Without going through our normal reading and notifications, rules, acts, all those, we are not able to actually see. Asking a question, getting an answer over a webinar, and then going back giving that same answer to the authority, then that authority will ask a different question, and then when you waste, we have to wait for the next webinar. So it just doesn't work. So we have to be powerful ourselves. We have to do some reading, we have to do some study, and then and empower ourselves to be actually effective in giving the best of services to our clients. So having said that, I think, and having said thank you to everyone, to all the, first of all, the attendees, then all the panelists, and last but not least to Dr. Joshua for sharing his time. I mean, he has spoken without any comma, full stop for 2 hours, and which itself is a big achievement. It's only when you have enough sufficient knowledge within yourself that you are able to speak, and that also he is not reading, he's just speaking ex tempo. So thank you, Dr. Joshua. Hopefully we will be also requesting you to join for on other topics in the near future. So, and thank you all office bearers, and of course the secretariat for hosting this. Please take in questions and promptly send them to Joshua, sir, so that he can answer and we can send it back to the members. Having said that, I would like to thank everyone, and shall we call it a day in that case?
So thank you. Thank you, Dr. Joshua and everybody, the
Thank you.
entire audience. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.